Richard Lyle Hole, my father, was born July 26, 1928. The attending doctor could not get his breathing to start and said, "This one is not going to make it." His mother, my grandmother Hazel, thinking, "Never give up," took her baby in her hands and willed him to breathe. And breathe he did for 90 years, 111 days. In his youth, the Boy Scouts had a strong influence on Dad's character. He enjoyed Boy Scouts, and in his teens, Sea Scouts. He took the Scout law seriously. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. In 1948, he married the most beautiful woman in the world. I have photos to prove it. A year later, their first child was born, tragically, stillborn. Mom and Dad thought, "Never give up." A year later, it was my turn. Dad was away at work. Mom was home alone, without a telephone, and made the delivery solo. When Dad returned, he called the doctor to come and finish the job. I remember my dad picking me up, cradling me against his arm, and grinning ear to ear. Well, no, I don't really remember it, but I remember my mom telling the story many times, and it's certainly the truth. In my early years, Dad was faster than a speeding bullet, stronger than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. In my tiny world, he had no faults. He taught me to use tools. He gave me toys to challenge my learning. I remember the erector set, a box of metal parts, a motor, and hardware. It was a gift that shaped my life as an engineer. When I joined Cub Scouts, Dad served as Cub Master. When I advanced to Boy Scouts, he served as Assistant Scoutmaster. He taught me the Scout law, to tie knots, campcraft, and many things. Dad was there for my first band concert, for my high school and my college graduations. When I developed an interest in amateur radio, ham radio, he followed my lead and became call sign N8ALF. Together we built scores of antennas and talked with other ham operators around the county and around the world. Dad sat beside me in the airplane after I earned my pilot's license and enjoyed the view from the clouds. He loved to fly. He was there in the bad times, and he was there to pick me up when the bad times ended. He stood at my wedding, traveling to Honduras in Central America to do so. Dad had a passion for deer hunting. November 15, opening day each year, was his day. From his early teen years on, he never missed a hunting season. Only in the last few years, his physical condition was no longer strong enough to go out to the hunt, but he was still in the hunt in his thoughts. When faced with open heart surgery, he never gave up. When faced with 2 hip replacement surgeries in the same month, he never gave up. My dad was unusual and outstanding. He and Mom celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary last March. I do not remember Dad ever complaining about anything. And I don't remember ever hearing him tell me anything he knew to be untrue. Sure, he didn't tell me everything he knew. At times he protected me by not speaking. But when he spoke, it was always the truth as he understood it. In Dad's youth, the phrase of the Scout Oath, "I will do my duty to God and my country," had a difficulty as he knew little about God. In his early 20s, that changed. Dad learned of Jesus Christ and accepted him as Savior and Lord. He was always quiet about his faith, rarely speaking out in witness, but serving in various leadership and service tasks in the church. Dad loved Jesus. For decades, Dad and I planned our year around the men's fall retreat at a church camp near Boyne Falls. We would gather with 150 men and teen boys for a time of rededication and purpose. Dad attended that retreat 34 consecutive times, and often in reflection, we would remind each other of a past retreat. Dad led several people to Jesus. When the time was right and the people were ready, he'd lead the way. I was blessed with the presence of Mom and Dad in my home in Florida for 5 years. Dad, after his retirement, had taken over most of the chores of cooking and discovered a passion for it. His marinated pork chops, patterned after those my Honduran family had taught him, were everyone's favorite. Every morning he'd get up and make a pot of coffee, and often would make me a hot breakfast. As Mom grew weaker, he assumed more and more of her care. He kept her independent long after anyone else could have done. To him, she was still the most beautiful woman in the world. They made the decision 2 years ago to return to Michigan for their sunset years. They wanted to reconnect with family and friends. Deep down, I knew another reason they would not bring up. In sharing my house, they were delaying my retirement and move to Honduras to be a full-time husband to the second most beautiful woman in the world, my Sonia. So they loaded up the truck and moved to Beverly, Fremont, that is. It was hard to see Dad's old Lincoln Town Car pull out of the drive that morning. He made the drive from Florida to Michigan at age 88. We had a team of people praying over that voyage, and they had a great adventure. 2 months later, I sold the Florida house, shipped my belongings by boat to Honduras, and started once again a new chapter in my life. Dad and I spoke many times by phone. It was a rare week when I missed making at least one call. The call I'll not forget was the last one, the day before we lost my dad. I called, not thinking, at lunchtime, forgetting the time zone difference. Dad talked to me just briefly as he was busy fixing lunch for Mom. He passed the phone to her for most of the call. He came back on the line wanting to tell me there had been snow on the ground for opening day of deer season and the second day as well. He was about to make his daily trip into town. He didn't say why. Often it was to buy the daily newspaper. His voice was strong and I knew he was happy. "I love you both," I said as the call ended. "We love you too," his response. And the next day concluded 90 years of response to Dad's mother willing him to breathe. Dad never gave up. God gave him breath, answering the prayer of a desperate mother who then did not even know God. But it was God's time to call Dad home. It was not my time. I'd hoped he'd make 100 years, as Aunt Grace almost did. I hoped I could bring them back another time to visit Honduras. And I hoped to bring my Sonia to Michigan to see them once again. It's hard to see him go. We'll see Dad again, and he'll be standing beside Jesus when we get there to join him. I love you, Dad.